The film commences with the compelling narrative of Mason Pettits, a distinguished Army officer whose life took an unforeseen turn. Despite excelling in every endeavor and serving his country with unwavering dedication, his world crumbled during a mission to assassinate Juan Venegas, a rival country's president. The mission ended in tragedy as their helicopter was struck by a missile, claiming the lives of his teammates. Surviving the crash, Mason grappled with severe trauma and depression, losing his sense of purpose. In the present day, Mason, now a lawyer, is portrayed surrounded by his army memorabilia, embodying a palpable sense of melancholy. His routine is interrupted by a call from his wife, Jenny, and he swiftly transitions into family life, dropping his grown-up daughter, Casey, at school on his way to the office. Despite his current profession, Mason finds himself unsatisfied. A surprise visit from his old friend and fellow soldier, Sebastian Earle, introduces Mason to a new opportunity. Sebastian, now running a security agency, discloses that he offers protection services worldwide. He presents Mason with a special assignment: to be the personal guard of journalist Claire Wellington, who is set to interview Juan Venegas, the very president Mason was once tasked to assassinate. Overwhelmed by the unexpected proposition, Mason initially refuses, citing the complexity of his emotions. Sebastian attempts to sway him, offering a substantial payment of $20,000 and assuring him that the task is a straightforward job that will conclude in a day. Following his decision to take on a one-day personal guard assignment, Mason Pettits returns home to prepare for his mission. When questioned by his wife Jenny about his sudden departure, Mason vaguely mentions the one-day job and leaves without divulging more details. His destination is revealed as he meets the journalist, Claire Wellington, whom he is tasked to protect. On the plane to Paldonia, Mason, seeking insight into Wellington's work, watches some of her interviews on his laptop, finding them amusing. A sudden confrontation occurs when Wellington accuses him of spying on her. Mason, smiling, denies the accusation, explaining his curiosity about her work. Unfazed, Wellington asserts her fame, earned through exposing truths and lies to the world. Upon their arrival in Paldonia, they are greeted by Juan, the president, who compliments Wellington. As they embark on a car ride escorted by Juan's security team, Mason feels bored and restless during the conversation between Juan and Wellington. Suddenly, a series of explosions shatter the road, destroying security vehicles. Mason, shocked, witnesses the chaos as armed assailants appear, opening fire. Overcoming his initial shock, Mason takes control of the car, instructing Wellington to duck. He skillfully maneuvers through the gunfire, retaliating against the attackers. A collision with another car of assailants results in a violent crash, eliminating the threat. Mason clears the way, bringing the car to a stop as they disembark and survey the aftermath of the ambush. Juan and Wellington, impressed by Mason's combat prowess, acknowledge his courage and skill, dubbing him a one-man army capable of taking on a multitude of foes. Despite the praise, Mason remains focused, urging them to move forward as time is of the essence. Suspecting his ally's involvement in the attack, Mason informs Juan of this suspicion, catching Wellington's attention as she sees the potential for a groundbreaking scoop. Wellington insists on interviewing Juan about the assassination attempt, but Mason prioritizes their escape. Moving to the safety of the forest, Mason contacts Sebastian to update him on the dire situation. Learning that Juan's security team has been eliminated, Sebastian expresses shock and promises to dispatch his team for assistance. Juan requests the phone to make a call, but Mason dismissively refuses, leading to a heated argument. Tensions escalate as Mason draws his gun, threatening Juan's life. Wellington intervenes, attempting to defuse the volatile situation. Mason hands her the phone, instructing Juan to make the call swiftly, emphasizing the urgency of their escape. The scene shifts to Juan's nephew, Jorge, who believes he is on the brink of assuming the presidency due to Juan's supposed demise. As the mastermind behind the attack, Jorge enjoys the support of General Martinez, the army commander. Martinez congratulates Jorge on his success, but their conversation takes an unexpected turn when Jorge receives a call. Stunned to hear that Juan is alive, Jorge learns of his location in the forest with Mason and Wellington. Promising to send a rescue team, Jorge faces an unforeseen challenge to his assumed ascendancy to power. As the call line abruptly goes silent, Martinez instructs Jorge to ensure that Juan doesn't escape this time. Unbeknownst to them, Juan reveals to Mason and Wellington that Jorge is dispatching a rescue team for their aid. However, Mason, skeptical of Juan's people, urges Wellington to leave Juan's side. Despite Mason's warnings, Wellington insists on interviewing Juan, citing the potential breakthrough this scoop could bring to her struggling career. Amid their disagreement, a helicopter lands, and armed individuals disembark. Realizing that these newcomers are not allied with Juan, Mason and Wellington sprint into the forest. The helicopter pursues them, unleashing bullets and missiles from above. Evading the onslaught, they manage to cross a river, with Mason directing Wellington to seek shelter. Armed with a sniper rifle, Mason aims and successfully downs the pursuing helicopter. Their escape continues through the dense forest, but Wellington becomes separated from Mason. Seeking refuge, she hides within the confines of a dead tree trunk. A persistent goon discovers her location, poised to strike. In a critical moment, Mason emerges from the shadows, launching a surprise attack on the assailant, ultimately dispatching him by breaking his neck. As Mason finds himself in the crosshairs of another goon, a sudden twist of fate unfolds. Juan materializes behind the assailant and swiftly dispatches him with a fatal shot. Bewildered, Mason questions Juan about the firearm, to which Juan explains that he always carries it for personal safety. Meanwhile, Jorge arrives at the scene with his men, witnessing the wreckage of the downed helicopter. Accompanying him is the formidable gangster Colonel Jan Kuhorst, hired by Jorge to eliminate his uncle Juan. Jan informs Jorge that Juan is still alive, much to Jorge's dismay. Despite the false information provided by Jan's people, Jorge resolves to send more men to finish the job. Jan sternly warns Jorge not to interfere in his work, emphasizing the stakes involved. Returning to Mason and Wellington, the duo seeks refuge, attempting to stay one step ahead of their pursuers. In a moment of vulnerability, Wellington apologizes to Mason for her earlier rudeness. Mason, reflecting on his struggles, confides in Wellington. He reveals the emotional toll his mission has taken, emphasizing the sacrifice of leaving his family behind. Mason expresses the deep love he holds for his family, plagued by the belief that they do not understand his burden. Wellington, in a comforting gesture, reassures Mason of his worthiness and expresses her belief in his character, providing a momentary reprieve from the mounting tension. Juan leads Mason and Wellington to a welcoming village where he once lived. The villagers greet them warmly, fostering a sense of community. As they interact with the villagers, Mason films Wellington interviewing Juan about the recent attack on his life. In the interview, Juan discloses that despite his country's size, it possesses valuable resources coveted by other nations. He reveals the motive behind the attacks, explaining that foreign powers seek to exploit his country's resources, particularly a rare metal with applications in mobiles, cars, and electronics. Juan, resolute in protecting his people and refusing to capitulate to external pressures, garners the support and admiration of the villagers. Their jubilation echoes in the declaration of "Long live the President." Impressed by Juan's commitment, Mason and Wellington decide to support him. Later, the villagers host a celebratory party, inviting Juan, Mason, and Wellington to join the festivities. Wellington, enjoying herself, dances and drinks with Juan, while Mason, observing from a distance, smiles at Wellington's happiness. As night falls, Mason, preparing for bed, is interrupted by Wellington, who enters the room seeking conversation. Attempting to forge a deeper connection, Wellington opens up to Mason. However, Mason, haunted by thoughts of his distant family, hesitates, expressing his inability to reciprocate. The next day, Mason contacts Sebastian, questioning the true nature of his assignment. He probes Sebastian about why he was chosen, suspecting ulterior motives. Sebastian denies any personal agenda, claiming that he was merely following orders from powerful individuals representing various countries. When asked why he was selected for the mission, Sebastian cryptically implies that Mason's desire to kill Juan played a role in his recruitment. Overwhelmed by the revelation from Sebastian, Mason abruptly ends the call and contacts his daughter, Casey. Expressing his love for her, he promises to return soon, acknowledging the tension between him and her mother. Mason then speaks briefly with Jenny, thanking her for taking care of their daughter and assuring her of his imminent return. Concerned about the escalating danger, Mason alerts Wellington, emphasizing the urgency to leave. However, their departure is interrupted by the arrival of Jan and his ruthless gang, who mercilessly terrorize the villagers, demanding information about Juan's whereabouts. Witnessing the brutal scene from their hiding spot, Juan confronts Jan, risking his safety. Wellington, apprehensive about Juan's well-being, confides in Mason, expressing fears of impending violence against Juan and the villagers. In a swift move, Mason procures a horse, places Juan on it, and urges him to flee. The trio races away from the chaos, evading Jan's gunfire. Despite their successful escape, Jan captures Wellington, subjecting her to captivity and impending peril. During their journey towards Paldonia's capital, Juan reflects on the perpetual danger surrounding them, acknowledging the relentless pursuit by his allies' enemies. Mason attributes this constant threat to Juan's association with dangerous allies intent on eliminating him. Juan, unsurprised by the revelation, discloses that he was not responsible for the deaths of Mason's military friends. As they enter a bustling city, Juan receives information from a close friend, revealing that Juan's nephew, in alliance with General Martinez, has seized control of Juan's office. Determined to reclaim his office and rescue Wellington, Juan outlines their next course of action. Subsequently, Mason confronts Jan at a prearranged location, demanding Wellington's release. In a tense standoff, Jan exits his vehicle, brandishing a gun, intensifying the precarious situation. The tension escalates as Mason confronts Jan, pointing his gun at him and calling Juan for reinforcement. In a dramatic turn of events, Juan arrives with a fervent crowd of supporters, ready to defend their leader. Jan, now bewildered and frightened by the unexpected turn of events, faces the wrath of Juan's passionate followers. Amidst the chaos, Wellington seizes an opportunity, grabbing a gun from a guard and liberating herself. She swiftly joins Mason and Juan as they make a hasty escape from the scene. Juan, acknowledging Wellington's resilience, promises her the most significant interview of her life, leading them to his office through a concealed cave. Inside the office, Juan encounters his nephew Jorge, who stands nervously but is soon moved by Juan's words of reconciliation. Juan expresses a desire for unity, proposing that they work together to govern the country, emphasizing that power need not be gained through bloodshed. However, their moment of reconciliation is shattered when Martinez enters the room and opens fire on Juan. In a swift and decisive move, Juan retaliates, eliminating Martinez. The chaotic sequence intensifies as Jorge is also fatally shot, leading to a mourning moment for Juan. Soldiers, now surrounding Juan, prepare to open fire, but Juan attempts to reason with them, emphasizing their shared commitment to defending their country. Amidst the standoff, Jan and his men arrive, further escalating the tension. Juan, displaying resilience, identifies the true enemies and convinces the soldiers to turn against Jan's goons. A fierce shootout ensues, resulting in casualties on both sides. Taking cover, Juan, Mason, and Wellington witness the chaos unfolding around them. Mason, fueled by a sense of duty, joins the fight, skillfully eliminating Jan's goons. Wellington diligently records the intense battle on her phone, capturing the bravery and skill displayed by Mason. The arrival of Sebastian and his team marks a turning point, engaging in a battle with Jan's remaining forces. The movie fast-forwards to a later period, where Claire is celebrated for her exclusive report from Paldonia. Recognizing the need for change, Juan steps down from his dictatorship, relinquishing power to the people. Mason, having played a pivotal role in the liberation of Paldonia, returns to his family. The emotional reunion sees Mason embracing his loved ones, symbolizing the restoration of familial bonds. As a token of gratitude, Juan presents Mason with a $5 million check. With a renewed sense of purpose, Mason decides to prioritize his family, realizing the importance of love and connection in the face of adversity. The film concludes with Mason's journey, having rediscovered his passion for life, dedicating himself to the well-being of his loved ones, and embracing a brighter, hopeful future.